Okay, we're a little bit early, but welcome to Healing Conversations. As a way of introduction, today we have Leon Feingold on the subject of polyamory, altruism, and making the world better one relationship at a time. Leon Feingold is a TED Talk speaker on this subject. He's an incredible story, an inspiring story. We'll see what he will share with us today. But really, I feel like today's talk is about authenticity as we relate to ourselves, as we relate to others in our relationships, whether they be intimate, whether they be friendships or whatever. It's really about being authentic and how we're relating to people. And so I can only speak from personal experience, the way I was raised in a strict religious household. And I'm sure we all have similar stories of how we were raised, and different stories. We're all different. But in a way, in a society that we live in, there are norms that are dogma, you could say logical rules of the way that we should be that sometimes betray our authenticity, the way we feel. And so today's discussion is really about not making a judgment, but simply considering if there are no rights or if there's nothing right or wrong, can we just look within and see like who are we? Are we doing things because we have to, we need to, we should, because it's expected of us? I know, for example, being married, formerly married, I did a lot of things that I didn't necessarily consider myself first. I put myself last, actually. And a lot of people say that's honorable, that you're supposed to sacrifice for for your family, that you're supposed to put your feelings last, that you're supposed to make your partner happy, and that you're supposed to, take care of your family. Those are all very honorable things as I say that, but also in my awakening, there was this realization of who am I? What am I? Am I honoring this expression? Where is it that I meet my authenticity and that I am most alive? And so that's been something that I've been considering over the last 5, 6 years, that's been unfolding as I've been transforming into this person that's before you, that was and still is a real estate broker, but now is in the holistic healing arts, hosting this thing called Healing Conversations and doing many more things. And in terms of holding space for people, listening, and being a little bit of awareness for people to really reflect on, is this for me, is this empowering for me, or is this disempowering for me? So today's discussion is going to be one of how am I relating to my romantic partner, to myself? Am I being authentic, or am I betraying myself? Am I doing things because I think I should, or am I doing things because I wholeheartedly, it's a yes for me, and I want to? So there is no judgment whether you're in a monogamous relationship or a polyamorous relationship. There's really no way to be from this perspective. And there are many ways to perceive life, and all ways to perceive life are expressions of what it is. And I feel like there's, even with that being said, there's no judgment. So this space is a space founded on unconditional love and acceptance. And as such, it's a space where we simply create awareness. We have a discussion, and this is a space where we get to decide for ourselves what's best for us and release judgment. Really, that's not what this space is for. This space is a space of really accepting our expression and finding our authenticity in our direction in life. So with that being said, today we have the honor of having TED Talk speaker, Leon Feingold, and great human in my interactions with him. So happy to have him here. So happy to have Mariah, Mango, April, Thomas, Bila, and many more that are joining us now. Amber, Melanie, and everybody here who will be going live on Facebook as well. Everybody on Facebook land. Let's see here. Let's go live on Facebook. Here we go. So again, here we go. Live on Facebook. Welcome everyone to Healing Conversations. Again, today we have the honor of having Leon Feingold on the subject of polyamory, altruism, and making the world better one relationship at a time. A little bit about Leon. He is the co-founder of the House of Good Deeds, New York City's largest volunteer-run resource rescue group. Leon is also a TED Talk speaker, as I mentioned. He's an upcoming author, advice columnist, and advocate for polyamory, a structure where people can engage in multiple meaningful simultaneous relationships where everyone involved knows and consents. Leon is also a pro athlete, lawyer, author, real estate broker, competitive eater, and loves his mother very much. Who doesn't? So Leon is in the process of writing a book based on his polyamory TED Talk as well. The House of Good Deeds is a 501c3 dedicated to building community, leading by example, and improving the world through altruism, one good deed at a time, everyone, everywhere, every day, as he says. So Leon, welcome to Healing Conversations. One of the things we like to do before we get started is just guide everyone on a very short meditation to ground everyone to this space. And want to say thank you for taking the time to check in on yourselves, to do a little bit of self-care, because we can get really tossed about and ungrounded, being at work, interacting with people. And how lucky are we that we have this time that we can dedicate to our mental, emotional, spiritual, physical health to just take a pause and reflect, and in a space of creating awareness of self-acceptance, unconditional love acceptance. And that's what we're doing here. So I invite you to close your eyes with me. And if you're driving, obviously do not close your eyes. And take a deep breath with me. And hold it. And embrace yourself, hug yourself. Release the breath. And say, I love me. I love you.
Love you.
Now I invite you to take another deep breath. And hold it. Release the breath. And say, I accept me. I accept you. Now take one last deep breath with me. And hold it. Release the breath. And say, I'm doing the best I can. And so is everyone else. We are all doing the best we can. And that's okay. We're right where we're supposed to be. There's no other way to be. We're fine. All is well. I invite you to open your eyes, arrive at your seat, knowing there's nowhere else to be. We're right here, all ears, ready to listen to Leon as he guides us on a talk on polyamory, altruism, and making the world better one relationship at a time. Welcome, Leon.
Thanks, Noe, and thank you everyone else who's here on the call. I've been on one of these lurking in the past, but it's an honor of mine to be here as your guest and to keep everyone company for the next hour or so. So thank you for having me, and I hope it'll be worth everyone's time.
Appreciate you, brother.
So I wanted to ask, and this is sort of interesting because I have, as Noe has pointed out, I've had somewhat of a charmed life. I've done a little of everything. I've been a professional athlete. I've been active in a million different things, and I've done a lot of different things. And right now, at this point in my life, the two most important things are polyamory, which has been a big part of my life since I learned about it about almost 20 years ago, and the House of Good Deeds, which is a charity that my late wife Yuan and I co-founded. I'll tell the story very briefly for anyone who does not know. The House of Good Deeds has become quite an impactful, large organization in New York City. But it was founded when my girlfriend and I got engaged back in 2016. The day after we got engaged, she wasn't feeling well. We took her to the hospital. They kept her there for 10 days. And we found out that she had terminal cancer. And we were completely overwhelmed. It was about as big 180 as you could possibly imagine ever having. I had finally found the girl of my dreams, the one I wanted to build a life with and spend the rest of my life with. And the hospital was telling us that there was nothing they could do except offer palliative care. So I posted once on Facebook saying we had no idea what to do and could somebody please help us? And people did. The post went viral. People came from all over the world, people we knew, people we didn't know. People donated tens of thousands of dollars for her medical care because she was a foreign national. She didn't have any insurance. But people also reached out in other ways. People who I had known or barely met were like, oh, I know somebody who's the head of admissions at Memorial Sloan Kettering. Why don't we see if we can get you on treated there? And they did. Somebody else was a wedding planner. They're like, hey, can I throw you guys a wedding? And she did. She put together a beautiful wedding for 300 people in 7 days with hundreds more watching online. Somebody else worked at Chuck Schumer's office, the senator, and got her family flown here from rural China in 4 days. All these amazing things happened, not because of anything miraculous, but simply because people cared enough to make a difference. And it wasn't even necessarily hard. People just gave what they had to spare because they cared enough to want to do so. So at our wedding, we exchanged vows that we wrote ourselves, and we vowed to our guests that we would find a way to pay it forward. So 8 years ago this month, January 30th, we incorporated the House of Good Deeds with the mission to encourage and enable altruism, to teach people how easy and important it is to make a difference. And unfortunately, Yuan passed away in March of that year. That was 2017. But her last months were made immeasurably better by the support that we received. And our first event was in accordance with Yuan's wishes. Our first event was giving away everything that she owned to people that needed it. And people were really touched by the gesture, and they wanted to find a way that they could help. How can we do? What can I do? So we said, well, we'll donate whatever you don't need, and we'll save it, and we'll do it again in a couple months, and we did. And every month since we incorporated, we've done at least one community-facing event, whether it's neighborhood cleanups or helping seniors, get in touch with loved ones, or homeless people, helping the homeless people get in touch with their families that had lost touch with them. Blood drives, like we've done so many other things, but we've grown to the point where the House of Good Deeds is now New York City's, as was mentioned, is now New York City's largest volunteer-run resource rescue group. Every month, on average, we collect and distribute over 4 tons. That's 8,000 pounds of clothing, shoes, housewares, and food. We do it all for free. None of us get salaries. We have 4 vehicles. We have hundreds of volunteers. We now have a 3,400 square foot headquarters in Alphabet City. And we're sort of at an inflection point where the charity is about to get extremely big, like household name in New York City, kind of big. We have people from 17 or 18 cities around the world that want to open chapters of the House of Good Deeds. And I'm extremely proud, and I believe that Yuan would also be extremely proud of what we've been able to accomplish so far and where we're taking the charity that she and I started together. Many of our volunteers are people who knew and loved us when we were dating, and I mean, honestly, just talking about it now to see how large we've gotten and how much of a change we've made in so many people's lives is remarkable. But now that you know my background regarding the House of Good Deeds and our belief system, which is altruism, there's religions, there's belief systems, there's faiths that involve a supernatural, and there's some which don't. There's the concept of Buddhism, for example, as a philosophy. There's no supernatural, there's no sky daddy, there's no magic, or at least the magic is just what we find in ourselves. So we think of ourselves the same way. Our belief system is in the power of people to make a difference. We have the ability to help others, and therefore we have the responsibility to help others. That is our faith. That is what drives me. That is what drives many of our volunteers, and that's the purpose of the House of Good Deeds. The good deeds are great, but we figure if everyone becomes an altruist, if everyone becomes more altruistic, then we live in a better society and everybody wins. So that is the altruism part of what I wanted to share today. Polyamory, which is, as was described, the concept that for many people, it makes sense to have multiple meaningful relationships. In fact, we all have multiple meaningful relationships. We all have people that we love in our lives, whether they're friends or family. And the idea that we are expected to fall in love romantically, emotionally, physically, tactilely, sexually with one person, or at least one person at a time, never quite made logical sense to me. I'm extremely logical. And I never understood why, if I loved someone, I couldn't build relationships with other people at the same time. And I knew that wasn't possible, because otherwise I would have known about it. And then I went on a date with somebody who said they were polyamorous. And I said, well, what is that? And she explained that, well, I have a boyfriend. We live together. We love each other very much. But I'm out on a date with you. And, he knows about it. He's actually on a date with one of his other partners. I said, how does this work? Is this swinging? Is this, it blew my mind that such a thing not only existed, but was workable. And then I learned about it as much as I could. And it clicked with me. It resonated with me in a way that very few things in my life have. And it made sense to me that, for me, I knew once I learned about it, I knew that I was polyamorous. It just made sense. It doesn't mean that I necessarily was going to be a compatible partner with everyone I'd ever meet who also happened to be polyamorous, but it made sense to me that I should be able to build meaningful relationships with multiple people without limitations about, well, you can only pigeonhole certain people into certain categories. And the more I learned, the more I dated, the more I spoke with people, the more I helped build the community in New York City, the more I learned how important it was to share what I've learned. So, as was pointed out, I gave a TED Talk about 8 years ago in the inaugural year for TEDx Bushwick. And since then, I have been invited to speak at South by Southwest. I've been a guest on a dozen podcasts. I've been featured in movies and TV shows. It's a huge part of my life. And while it may seem that altruism and polyamory really don't have that much to do with each other, in discussing my conversation here, I realized that they were both about building relationships. And that's why I think they're both so important to me, because as far as I'm concerned, the purpose of life is to accomplish as much as you want, without hurting yourself or anyone else. There's nobody's keeping score. You can't take it with you. And the idea that, right before you pass away, the only things of value that any of us are going to have in the moments before we pass away are our memories and our experiences and the things that we've accomplished and the things that we've done. And Glow Moss, you guys are so adorable right now. Yeah, I totally saw you guys do that. And the only other thing other than your own memories are the things that you leave behind, your reputation, the things that you've amassed, the things that you have to share with others. So it seems pretty obvious to me that the purpose of life is to accomplish anything and everything you want to try. But both polyamory and altruism have at their core relationships, building things, making things together, experiencing things, because you can live a life by yourself. And if that's what is important to you, whoever you are, then go for it and do the things that make you feel powerful, make you feel successful. But for me, the things that have made me feel the most powerful, the most successful, the most happy, the most accomplished in my life have been building connections for myself and for others, whether it's through helping people through polyamory or helping myself. There's really no difference. Like I personally get a lot of joy out of connecting people. Like I love setting people up on dates. I love connecting people, networking and business wise. I love thinking how to plug the wires that I have over here with the plugs I have over here and be like, maybe this person and that person have some kind of, synergy or whatever buzzword you want to use. But I've realized how similar the things in my life are because I genuinely enjoy them. I genuinely enjoy building connections of all kinds without limitations. And whether it's my belief in helping others because I can, or experiencing new connections with others and teaching people how easy and important it is to do either, those are just really important to me. They make me feel like I'm helping others, which helps me. One of the things that people sometimes ask in a philosophical way, of course, is it really altruistic if you're feeling good about it? If you're doing something nice for others and it feels good, isn't that selfish? And the correct answer I've realized is who cares? Yes, it's altruistic. And if you want to call it something else, then you can, but I enjoy doing it. So anyway, in a rather large nutshell, that's me. And those are some of the things that I'm passionate about. I am curious about some of the other people on the call, if there's anything you'd like to talk about or discuss. I am about 130,000 words into my first book. It is based upon my TED Talk. The working title is Poly Smarts for Amorous Hearts. The idea is that it's sort of like Queer Eye for the Straight Guy, but instead of being a fabulous gay man who's going to teach straight people all about fashion, I'm a very experienced polyamory advocate and person who's lived it. And I want to help all people improve their relationships based on the skills that I've learned through polyamory. And the book is not for people to learn how to do polyamory or learn why polyamory is better or not better. It's just that I've learned so much, not just through my own trial and error, but through the communities that I've been involved with and the people that I've met and the relationships I've had. I mean, if you've had amazing relationships that have taught you a lot sequentially through life, that's great. But I've had so many relationships and I've learned so much from them. And I just want to share, whether it's through altruism or selfishness or whatever it is. I feel like I have the ability to help others with what I've learned. And therefore I feel like I have the responsibility. So if it's okay, Noah, you're the show, you're the host. So if that is a helpful intro, I would love to hear from some of the people on the call.
Yeah, let's open it up for discussion. I think we have some people that are joining our call for that very fact because they're considering the whole world of polyamory. And I'm sure there's a ton of questions. We have Glow, Mariah, Bila, Amber, Mango, April, Thomas, Melanie, Randy, and Facebook land. Feel free to type in a question on the chat or raise your hand and we can go ahead and unmute you. Don't be shy. And keep in mind, this applies. He's giving us wisdom and insights. This doesn't necessarily need to be about, specifically about polyamory. This is about relationships, monogamous, everything. It applies for all.
Yeah, how have you seen this improve your other relationships, and how have you helped other people do that?
Just to clarify, by the way, are you Glow Moss or are you Mariah? It's hard to tell which one is which there.
Yes, I'm Glow Moss.
She's Glow.
Awesome. Thank you. So how has polyamory improved my other relationships, or how has it affected my other relationships?
Yeah, like what aspects or specific things have you brought into like improving your other relationships?
I think one of the most important aspects of my personality, which has been important to me without initially realizing it, is authenticity, is doing things not because I'm expected to, either from peers or from society, but because they are important to me, they matter to me. Um, a lot of the times when I would meet somebody, if I felt a connection with them and I would want to explore it, I always sort of I felt like I was expected to pigeonhole them. Like if I meet somebody at work, that has to be a work relationship. If I meet somebody at a bar, that has to be a hookup relationship. Um, like I never liked pigeonholing anyone. Like I never liked being pigeonholed myself, and I didn't like doing it to others. I never understood why, if I met somebody, I couldn't just connect with them in whatever ways made sense. And that doesn't always mean just hook up with whomever you want, because I mean, sometimes it does, but sometimes you meet somebody and they just seem like they'd be great friends. And of course, it has to go both ways, but I think giving myself the freedom to be able to explore connections with people without limitation has always been really eye-opening for me, and something that I never felt comfortable with before. I felt like I had to restrict my relationships, had to restrict myself, and behave in certain ways that were expected. Obviously, the most obvious is that when you are in a relationship with somebody and you think you love them, or you think it's a really important relationship, you have to dedicate yourself to that person and prove that you care about them by sort of forswearing all similar relationships with other people. I mean, that's the most obvious. Most of us go through it. Most of us are raised on the concept of serial monogamy. And while it never made sense to me, um, it's just a microcosm of all relationships in my life. Because just because you're romantically interested in somebody or sexually interested in somebody, you're still in a relationship with them. And each of us is in a relationship with hundreds or thousands of people in our life. I'm in a relationship with every one of you right now. It may not be a very strong one or a very deep one, but every interaction we have with somebody creates a relationship. And I don't think that just because a relationship starts a certain way or involves a certain series of criteria means that it has to stay there. And I think one of the most important lessons that I've learned about relationships from polyamory is that you don't have to pigeonhole anyone into anything. The world is your oyster. You don't have to limit yourself in the ways that other people expect of you. I think that any two consenting adults can have any kind of relationship they possibly want. They can build a relationship, build trust, build love, build whatever they want, and explore things without limitations. And whether it's romantic or sexual is irrelevant. I think the idea of sexual being in a magical category or romantic being in a magical special category by requirement is a red herring. I think that if people want their relationships to be sacred, whatever that looks like to them, then they should find people who are compatible with them, who want the same things that they want. But I think the first step is always figuring out what you want. And most of us simply don't know what we want. A lot of us are just going on autopilot. We're going on what our families, what our societies have told us we're supposed to do, what we're expected to do. And I think one of the most important things I can encourage anyone to do is spend the time, figure out what matters to you and why. And then broadcast to everyone in all aspects of your life, you know what? This is who I am, this is what I want, and this is why. And I would love to surround myself with people who appreciate me for this and who want to be part of this. And that little change in my life has made all the difference. I do recognize that I have a significant amount of privilege. I don't have a job or other things that would necessarily hold me down. I'm not beholden to an ex who has responsibility over my kids. I'm not in a jurisdiction where I'm at loss of losing parts of my life, including liberties that I have. I live in a very liberal place. I work for myself. I'm a cis white hetero male. Like, there's a lot of things that I have privilege that not everyone does, and I try to be sensitive to that. But I think everyone who acknowledges that they have desires and authentic needs that can be fulfilled by exploring relationships with others should feel free to do that to the extent that is possible. It's a very long way of saying, figure out what you want, share it with others, and then you will just naturally surround yourself with people who want and appreciate the real you, which is much better than putting on a fake face and following fake rules just to make other people happy.
Thanks for sharing. I feel like you have a really genuine energy, and I feel like people can connect with that energy. So I appreciate that. And yeah, I really resonate on all levels of like being able to build any relationship that you want, whether that be like for business or networking. Like I love networking. I'm a 4/6 in human design. My nature, my DNA is connecting with others and connecting other people together. So I really want to be able to also be free in that sense of like being able to connect everyone together. And, because I'm really on this mission to create, a regenerative world in a world that works for all. And that the single most important thing in this whole equation of planet Earth and of humanity is connection, So it's just like, and I think we've been so blocked for so much programming and just the way that society is right now. And so I think it's so important to like open that portal. And so thank you for like inviting people to be like, what kind of relationships do you want? And like to like, take that as, stake it in the sand and be like, this is what I want. And what it made me think of is like, I have started doing these workshops. They're like intuitive partner yoga massage. And I did my first one in Portugal at Gathering the Tribes Festival, but like, that's the kind of community that I want to be in. Like, I want to be offering that all the time. And I need to create my life around that, So thank you for asking that question, because I'm thinking about it constantly, but it just popped into my head. And I also just wanted to mention like March 2017 was one of the darkest moments in my life. So it's, interesting that you mentioned that time, because it brought me back to being in darkness and just how much transformation can occur. So it's really beautiful and magical that you've created so much from her life with the House of Needs and everything over the last 7-8 years. And yeah.
Well, thanks for asking the question. And yeah, I love talking about this stuff. So I can go on for a long time.
Thank you, Glo, for asking such a good question. Thank you, Leon, for really making us reflect. I really appreciate when you make us really look within. What are we for? What kind of relationship do we authentically crave? What do we want? Or is it what we want? Is it what society says we want? Is it really what we want? Have we really questioned it? Have we put it on the table and really looked at it? How's it working for us right now in our current relationship? How has it worked for us in our past relationships? And are we willing to repeat the same cycles over and over again? How does that work? And how does that feel? How do we want to feel? What kind of experience do we want to have? Really questions that Leon has really put to the forefront to create some awareness, to really say like, this is a short experience that we have called human, right? How do we want to spend our time? I know for me, it's been a point of reflection. I'm not saying I'm not polyamorous, but it's something that has come up in my awareness. And here we are with Leon. And it's something that I appreciate, the authenticity that with polyamory, what that brings to the forefront. How authentic am I being to myself? Or am I, like you said, putting myself in a box where it's expected to me to sacrifice, to lower myself because it's expected of me, because it's a social norm, because it's supposed to be a certain way. I've had, instances like in past relationships where I was, I had to want to have a baby, but I didn't want to have a baby. One example of that, like in a traditional relationship, that didn't feel good, and it just felt like a manipulation. If I put it in that context, or I can go on, and I'm sure you guys all have stories of like this is your role as a man or a woman or whatever type of relationship you're in, and you're supposed to just fall in line and do certain things that are expected, right? Whether it's like exclusivity or not being exclusive, the list goes on and on. There's so many things, right? And so it's really a point of reflection. But let's open it up for more questions. Oh, it looks like Glow put something here. What are the first steps you would invite people to take to build better relationships? And we also have April with her hand up. Maybe we'll put a pause on the question and we'll have April jump in, and then we'll jump on with Glow's question as well. Is that okay, Glow? Okay, thank you.
Hi. Let's see. Thanks for your story. Very, very honest and heartfelt. I appreciate that. I know you said you're writing a book, so you're clearly doing a lot of intricate thinking about what the message is of the book. And I imagine one of the parts of that process would be arriving at this point of considering polyamory. I feel like it's a developmental stage of growth. For some people, not everyone gets there. For me, anyways, I should speak for myself only. And, having been raised in a very cultured, Mexican culture, very cultural world where there is a very monogamy specific and role women play has been something that I've bucked from the beginning. And, being my authentic self in my big Mexican family has kind of alienated me over the years because I am very open, authentic, and altruistic, and that's not really allowed. And so, So again, the developmental pieces, there's all those things you're fighting. There's the fighting the cultural expectations, familial expectations, societal expectations, having several failed relationships where I didn't want this to be the rest of my life. I enjoyed it for what it was, but it wasn't going to be forever. I did raise a child, so I did have those years where I had to toe the line because I'm also working in public education. So societally, I have to fit in a very clean box. A little bit about my story is around 40 years old, I realized that the monogamy married life forever wasn't going to happen for me in the way that I had thought it might, or thought was expected of me. And so then I started I kind of fulfilled a desire I had to date couples. And I really liked the idea of dating couples because I could come and go as I please. It's not my monogamous relationship. A relationship has a lot of complexities to it. I didn't want to deal with those. They could deal with that. I like men. I like women. I think I like women. I'm not really sure. I'm attracted to them, but I don't think I don't exactly know where I'm at with that, but kind of like you said, Leon, to explore what you like, I don't even say that exactly, but to explore what you're looking for. So I started, exploring at around 40 and also learning to connect with people without falling in love. That was really a hard developmental stage for me because not everyone wanted to fall in love, and I was kind of trained to fall in love. And so I had to learn how to have friendships with benefits, literally, and still navigate my emotions and not fall into that determined monogamous relationship that was highly impressioned upon me. So now I guess I'm in my 50s now, early 50s, and I don't know what I want in terms of polyamory. But I do know that having dated a lot of more open-minded people, a lot of people don't know what they want. So there's a lot of time trying to figure out where to meet people like myself who have blurred edges and lines, I guess, and more altruism and idealism than, and versus couples who are trying to save their marriage because um, they've been in a 30-year marriage and men are cheating or not cheating, or it's really complicated.
That's actually a lot to cover, and I'm so glad that you shared your story and your background. Thank you, April. I'm going to cover as much as I possibly can that I think might be helpful. Although what I will say is, if you come from a Mexican background as a woman raised in that culture, and you feel like you were didn't really fit in, and you were kind and altruistic, and the things that you wanted didn't quite fit in, and like everyone else was doing something and you weren't. It worked out okay for the girl from Encanto. Just saying. That aside, I want to touch on a couple of things that you said. First off, one of the most important things you can do, in my opinion, is find community. Surround yourself with people who have maybe not your exact experience, but I think once you start exploring life outside the straight and narrow, you'll find there's a lot of people there. In fact, most people, everyone, this is something that I learned in really young. Like if you're a kid growing up in a normal school, a normal society, the way they keep kids in line, the way that we keep kids in line is if they step outside, they do something wrong, we punish them, we ostracize them, we tease them. Whether we're kids or adults, we punish them for doing anything other than the straight and narrow. So most people believe that the straight and narrow is the way that they are expected to go, and it isn't until at some point in their 20s, 30s, 40s, or later, they realize, oh my God, this isn't working for me. Like I'm doing everything that I'm supposed to do. It hasn't worked out the way that makes sense to me. I feel really uncomfortable in the life that's been created around me. What the hell happened to me? One of the best things you can do is find other people who've had similar experiences. If you're interested, for example, in polyamory, I mean, where are you in New York or are you elsewhere?
I'm in California, Central Coast, and thanks for the question, because I would say, where do you find this community that you're talking about? In New York?
Like I started off by saying I'm very lucky to have lived in New York, which is extremely liberal. But then again, California is hardly, Louisiana. You should be able to find a lot of people. The key is a lot of the people that are in this community are not publicly out in the same way that there's gay people everywhere, but you may not know who they are unless they let themselves be out. Not everyone has that privilege. Plus, we live in 2025. There's a lot of online communities that you can go to. In fact, I was one of the co-founders of one of the largest ones, Open Love New York. They're sort of shifting right now, but they still have an online presence. So you can just find Open Love New York. I used to co-author an advice column called Poly Wanna Answer. Just kind of like giving people the opportunity to connect over community, asking questions, answering questions. I think one of the things that that helped me learn that polyamory would work for me, even though I only learned about it maybe 15 plus years ago, I've always been weird. I've always been the weird kid. And that helped me a lot because once you step off that straight and narrow where you're supposed to be, the little bubble of approved behavior, and you're just the weird kid, you can explore, you can do things. Once you step off outside that bubble and you can still breathe, you're like, oh my God, there's life outside this little straight and narrow bubble, especially if you are curious and especially if you're intelligent and especially if you have opportunities, you start thinking to yourself, what else am I supposed to do that I can get away with not doing? And what else is out there? What else can I explore? What else might make sense to me? And you might start exploring a lot of the things about gender, about orientation, about desire, about things that you've wanted to do. And it doesn't matter if you learn it when you're, a child. Hopefully you'll have safe places to explore. there's obviously, and for good reason, not a whole lot of opportunities for like tweens to figure out questions about their sexuality unless they have really supportive parents and they're lucky enough to have communities like that. Because there's not a lot of communities where young kids can really safely explore a lot of the questions that we have. But once you're an adult, once you are free to determine your own course, there's a lot of things you can explore. You can explore kink, you can explore bondage, edge play. Am I attracted to women? Am I attracted to men? Am I attracted to anybody? Like, am I attracted to everybody? Like, what is it about things that intrigue me? Am I sapiosexual? Am I, what parts of me feel better that I've always been thought that I'm not supposed to touch? Like, once you start exploring the world outside the straight and narrow, you realize how much more there is to explore. And if you are in a safe space, and that's what the safe space concept is about, it's truly a place where you can explore what matters to you and learn your authenticity that I was talking about. Because it sounds like, if I could just use you as an example, it sounds like you're in a place, or you've been in a place where you've questioned a lot and you've taken some steps in the direction to explore, but you haven't really had the supportive community or the supportive safe spaces that would allow you to have your questions answered without hurting yourself or without, potentially risking the life that you've built over your entire life. So I think one of the most helpful things you can have is altruistic mentors, people who know what they're doing and are willing to help, give of their time, give of their experience, give of their advice to help people explore. And it may very well turn out that what you think matters to you won't. I mean, I don't know how many people here think that they know what their life is going to be in 5 or 10 years. You may know what you want. You may know, okay, well, this is my goal. I'm going to be at this point, and in 5 years I'm going to have this, and 10 years I'm going to have that. But think about the you of 5 or 10 years ago, and you'll realize how different your life is now from where you thought you were going to be 5 or 10 years from that 5 or 10 years ago point. So it's just a very roundabout way of saying that nobody knows what the hell you're going to want in the future. I mean, any one of us may wind up identifying extremely different in the future. I usually tell people, as of right now, like, I couldn't imagine myself being anything other than polyamorous, but I am open to the possibility that something may change and I may feel differently. I may want something. My priorities might shift. My motivations might change. Something may happen in my life and be like, oh my God, I've been looking at this wrong. I just had this great revelation. And now all of a sudden I realize that I now need to focus on X, whatever X is. I'm open to that. And instead of believing that I have all the answers, I know that I'm just one source of advice, but your answers, whoever you are, whether it's April or somebody else on this call or someone else, your answers are out there for you to find. Just keep exploring, keep trying things. If you find somebody that you think has some experience that you don't, and you think they're altruistic, you trust them, ask questions, become friends, one of the things that I think you mentioned at some point in terms of relationships, like if you don't know what you like, try everything, do everything. As long as you don't hurt yourself or anyone else, do all the things, because how else are you going to know? I always say try things twice, just in case you screwed it up the first time. The best way to learn is through trial and error, along with a supportive community that can give you advice and give you feedback and help you process all your experiences. Because if you're trying to learn everything for the first time, it's incredibly daunting. But if you have people around you who can help you process what you've done, what you've learned, the experiences you've had, and help put them into proper perspective, you can exponentially grow so much faster and learn so much more than you could simply trial and error alone. And the last thing I want to say about what I remember, what you said, is you actually said something super important. You had to unlearn a lot of what you learned growing up. And I think that is probably one of the most mature things anyone can do, is kind of realize where something didn't work for you and go back and erase a lot of the structure that has been built on top of that. Even though it may take you back, you may have to unlearn a lot of what you believed about relationships, or about discrimination, or about certain people, certain nationalities, certain, every discriminatory belief, every misogynistic belief, every racist belief is based on someone's either life experiences or, stories they've heard from someone else, and they just started building belief systems on top of that. You have to find ways to go back to the foundation, find what matters to you, find what's real, and even though it may be challenging, erase everything that flows from that and start building all over again. It took me a long time to understand that there weren't any shortcuts for that. You really have to go all the way back and relearn, but it does help when you have community, and it does help when you have mentors, altruistic mentors.
So what's the secret bat signal for those communities? Is it the pineapple, or how do you find the mentor?
Well, I would say go online. I mean, like I said, Open Love New York has been one of the largest organizations on the East Coast, and there's tons of people that are still involved. I stepped down from that a few years ago, and a couple of months ago, I think they announced that they were, like, the people who had been running it are actually undoing it for some reason. Like I said, I haven't been involved, but there are communities everywhere. And if Noe is okay with it, I can share some links that I think might be helpful. There's a lot of great groups. For example, just to pick the first thing that came to mind, on Facebook, there's a lot of polyamory 101s. There's a lot of polyamory subgroups. I wouldn't necessarily suggest Reddit because it's famous for snark and humor at other people's expenses necessarily, but I think it should be relatively easy to find some really useful, not just informative, but useful Facebook groups. Like I'm a part of several because I like giving advice, but I also like learning. Like it's constantly a learning experience. Life is a learning experience. So I would be happy to share some links at some point, either probably not in this chat during this call, but after the fact. But I think if you look online, there's probably a lot of places you can find. I'm happy to share what I know.
Thank you, Leon. Great advice. Just to piggyback on what you just said, and really reel everything back in. One thing that one of my friends helped me appreciate as far as doing life is, my friend Troy said, "What's wrong with right now if you don't think about it?" A lot of times we get caught up with stories that are really doing us no good. They're disempowering us, belief systems that are really not being authentic to our expression. And so when we release those stories, we're free to be present, to be authentic, to follow our heart. When we follow our heart, we're doing no harm to ourselves and others. We're acting from a space of unconditional love and acceptance of ourselves and honoring our expression and being true in our relationships. So I feel like that's something to keep in mind. A lot of times we get so caught up in the mind that we don't even get started, and we betray our expression. And we're not even authentic to ourselves, and for sure, by extension, not authentic in our relationships with others. So Leon is here pointing us to being authentic, right? Reeling it back into what is true for us. What is true for us, defining what we are for, then we're able to be true with others in our relationships. So, wow, great insight, Leon. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. One of the key questions I'll just throw out there is ask if you're ever stuck and you're not sure what's going on, what's important to you, what is authentic, what isn't. Ask why. Why do I want this thing? Like what leads me to believe that this is either a need or a want that I have? And of course, it's also important to figure out the difference between needs and wants. A want is something that is nice to have. Maybe it's instant gratification. Maybe it's something which is awesome. Maybe it's something you've always enjoyed. But a need is something you can't live a healthy life without. It's like vitamins and minerals for your brain. And it's different for different people. Obviously, everyone has similar, recommended daily allowance of vitamin C, vitamin D, whatever. But, for some people, variety is a need. Like for me, I happen to know that variety is something that is incredibly important to me. Other people have their settings completely the opposite way, and they value stability more than anything else. And they are happy to have a relationship that is the same. They're happy to go to the same restaurant and order the same meal. Whatever that looks like for them, they feel safest and happiest when they have the same thing and it is stable and they can rely upon it. in some ways that's good for some people, and some people that could be a needs, for some people it could be a want. The human condition is so varied between people. We all need oxygen, like we all need food. But as far as what makes up our psyche and what matters to us personally varies widely between people. And one person's need is another person's want. The key is just to figure out your own whys, figure out why you need, what your needs and wants are, why, and then find people that are compatible, because you want to find people who match you just as much as you match them.
Great advice. If we're not clear with ourselves, we're going to get unclear people in our lives, right? Creating clarity is step number one. So you brought that out like so many times. Thank you for making that an exclamation point. So we have about 8 more minutes. Does anybody else have a question? Anything else that you want to create some clarity? You can raise your hand. You can punch in your question on the chat.
I have a question. Where are most of the people from on this call? Do we have any other New Yorkers or East Coasters? I'm just curious.
Well, I personally know that quite a few are from California, Chicago. We have Texas, and I'm not quite sure what other states are here.
Okay, I was just curious, just in terms of like things to do. But if people are curious about the House of Good Deeds, as of right now, we're only in New York. Although, like I said, we have people, including Colorado, hey Jacinda, who are interested in starting chapters. But that's not going to happen for at least another year yet. We still want to get all the T's crossed and I's dotted before we expand. But in terms of polyamory or exploring relationships, there's so many different ways and so many different places that you can find community. I'm actually a big fan of the Burning Man scene. I've been involved. I've been to every big burn since 2012. I started my own camp called New York Dangerous, and there are regionals all over the world. So if somebody is interested in non-traditional thinking, doesn't mean you have to be into drugs, doesn't mean you have to be into polyamory, doesn't mean you have to be into anything. You could just be into new experiences. But I have found the tabula rasa, the blank slate of any Burning Man experience, to be a really great opportunity to explore both things for yourself and about yourself. That's one of the most readily accessible things. And California has at least 3 different regional burns that I know of. So April, if you're interested in pushing your boundaries and seeing what's going on, if you want to see what that's like, I can promise you, you will have a memorable experience.
I did my first burn this year, so for me, it was just connecting to. I mean, it can be any type of experience. It doesn't necessarily need to be a polyamorous experience or anything of that, like you mentioned, drugs. For me, it was connecting to the inner child, riding bikes all day long, carefree, music, dance. It really opens your eyes and to see like what is important for me. It's a point of reflection. Really, you're doing yourself. And for me, it pointed to, am I putting myself first? That was the big message. Am I really putting myself first? And for me, it was, maybe I'm not. And so as a point of reeling it back into what's important for me, how can I take care of myself? And so that's what I've been reflecting from my burn this past year. So we have about 5 more minutes. One last question. Otherwise, we'll go ahead and conclude, and we'll ask Leon, is there any parting advice, anything that you want to leave us with, something that we can maybe take home for homework and just reflect on as far as our conversation today?
Well, I'll give my thought then, and if anyone has a question, you can always find me either through the House of Good Deeds on Instagram, or the House of Good Deeds on Facebook, or houseofgooddeeds.org, or just simply Leon Feingold. I am somehow and magically, literally the only Leon Feingold on social media anywhere on the planet. I don't know how that's possible, but I am. I get the feeling there's like 17 Noe Renterias somehow, but there's literally only one Leon Feingold. I don't know how that happened. Yeah, just question everything, explore things, do everything, do all the things, try all the things. As far as altruism, if you want to surround yourself with people who are what you want, figure out what you want, and act the way that you want, be the change you wish to see in the world. I'd say if you want to live in a better world, then do something every day to make it better. Like, for example, if you are the kind of person who normally does nice things, every day do one thing for no other reason than it makes the world better. So you could pick up a piece of trash and put it in a bin. You can give somebody a genuine compliment on a decision they made. You can smile at somebody that's having a hard day. You can take an extra minute and listen to somebody. It should have nothing to do with money. It should have to do with giving your time or your attention. If a homeless person asks you for money on the street, just look them in the eye and give them some sense of humanity and just say, I'm sorry, I don't give on the street, but I do wish you luck, and listen to them if they have something to say. Like, just, it's so easy to spend a little bit of time to do something that makes the world better. So just do one thing every day that makes the world better. And it's so easy to do. And if you're an asshole that just doesn't care, then just do one nice thing.
Thank you, Leon. We're so blessed to have you here to widen our perspective, really. I feel like this is a space to create awareness. A lot of times we just grow up and we're doing the best we can. Our parents did the best we can. Our family, our society did the best they can, and we don't know any better. And so this is a space where we create awareness so that we can really reflect on, is this for me, or is it time to reconsider and like really connect to my authenticity and to empowerment to live a life that's really alive and aligned and in tune to our expression. And so thank you, Leon, for getting us there, creating that awareness, making us think and reflect. Take a little pause and see, well, maybe I do want to look at things differently now that I know. I didn't know before. Now I do. So thank you. And thank you for making it also a light conversation, right? Like, life is not supposed to be heavy. And I think the heaviness is what creates like that angst, the depression, and the not really feeling well. And so really this is a space to heal, to get lighter. So I hope that you guys feel a little bit lighter. I hope you guys have a little smile on your faces and are able to, have a better rest of your day, because I know I am. Thank you, Leon, for getting us there. Appreciate you. So to close out, I just invite you to do a really short meditation. Promise you it's super short, just to get us into another really nice Zen mode. Invite you to close your eyes. Obviously, don't close your eyes if you're driving or not in a safe space. And take a deep breath with me. And as you take this deep breath, hold it and imagine you're breathing in all your suffering, all the suffering of the world, and hold it. Now get ready to release that suffering, and in turn, exchange it for loving kindness to yourself. Release the breath. So you release this breath. Imagine that you're releasing loving kindness to yourself, loving kindness to your family, your friends, the whole world. And I invite you to open your eyes. Thank you so much for being here. Appreciate you all. Love you guys. Until next time, we have another exciting guest speaker, also from New York and Florida, that will be guiding us on another exciting conversation, all surrounded all about healing. And so thank you again, Leon. Thank you, everyone that's here on the call. Thank you, everybody on Facebook Live and everybody that's going to look at this on YouTube. Appreciate you guys and have a great night. Ciao.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See everybody.
Thank you, brother.
No problem. Thanks for having me. Hope it went well.
Appreciate you.
Yeah, April did absolutely fine. She was really nervous. I could tell.
I appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Glow and Mariah, you guys are super emotive and you're adorable, both of you.
Thanks. I was moderating the call.
Thank you, Paul. Appreciate you.
Yeah, if anyone, I mean, if anyone wants to reach out to me, I'm easy to find.
Got it.
Okay.
If I end the call, Noe, it'll still record. It'll save the video to the cloud.
Okay, do you want to?
Or do I can just stop recording then?
Yeah, stop recording. All right, there we are.
Oh, there we go.
Perfect.
I should
Cool.
do
Good night, guys.